What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode, Combat Insiders. Nick Portella, as always, with my colleague from across the pond, Wayne Carl. We're also joined today via Skype, special guest, Callan, the Rockstar Potter, 17-7. Callan, how are you doing, buddy?
Good, thank you. Thank you guys for having me on.
Oh, yeah, anytime. So I understand Wayne had already done a Q&A with you. So we're going to let him roll right into the fight you have. We don't want to go over old stuff. We want to go over new wins. So I'll give it to Wayne and get this ball rolling.
Mate, I've been looking forward to this interview because I look at it, I think you're one of the best in Australia. And I was excited, firstly, to do a Q&A. And then, obviously, we reached out and we wanted to bring you on because you had a big fight coming up. And it was supposed to be on Caged Power Play. It got cancelled a week before. And then Eternal stepped in, and you were in against very tough New Zealander, BJ Bland. And you come away with an extremely tough, I think it was at split?
Yes, split decision, super close.
Yeah, look, I had it 29-28, and I'm going to get straight into it because I watched it via stream. I think in the second round, you had him in a submission, and I thought I seen a tap to the point where I actually got up to get a bourbon because I thought the fight was over. It was about 2 a.m., I think, my time, because it was in Perth. And I actually stopped and looked back and thought, they haven't stopped that fight. And he was able to slide out. Did you feel the submission? Did you feel the tap? And did you let go?
No, there was no letting go. My corners also informed me that they thought they saw a tap. I've always been under the impression, and my coach always tells me, we don't let go of anything until he's in the cage and grabbing me off. So just sort of those responses. The rule, as I see it, I don't put on a submission to chase an opponent tapping. My job is to get the referee to stop it or render my opponent unconscious. Neither of those things happen, so the fight goes on.
So you don't go for the sub, you just want him to go out. That's absolutely perfect. Remind me, I know I'm old and 40, mate, but I'm never going to roll with you. So, especially, I'm not going to let you get me in a submission. I'll run. So, all good. Mate, how hot was it in that stadium? Because you seemed to sweat up really, really early, both of you guys, and it felt like you were going for submissions and you weren't able to secure them because you were sliding out. Was it super hot or was that just the stream that made it look like that?
Yeah, look, it was quite warm and the sweat was kicking quite well. Everyone informed me that the matting area actually looked quite slick on screen. It didn't feel that slick actually in the cage. It felt great. There was a lot of sweat. I think that maybe the blood had a good amount of traction descent as well. I remember going in the last round going for a Kimura rollover, which is one of my favourite moves, and his arm just slid out like a piece of wet spaghetti. So, yeah, there wasn't a whole heap of traction in there. It made it very interesting.
Did you move up to welterweight? Like, obviously, I thought you normally fought at 155. What made you go? It was fought at 170 because BJ's a big guy and you took everything he had, and I thought it was fantastic. Like, he was hitting you with some hard shots and you were just walking forward.
Yeah, look, obviously, the majority of our last fights have been at the 155 division. We've popped back up. I'm one of the many guys, like you see a lot of the guys in the UFC, that sit right in the middle of that division. 155, as much as it's possible, it is extremely difficult for me to get down there. The 170, as much as that's still a cut, you know what I mean? I do that a lot more comfortably than lightweight. So again, I'm just one of those guys that sits right in the middle of that division. If they do manage to bring in the super lightweight division, I'll know exactly where I'll be making a home.
Well, the rumor mill out there now is, and strictly just rumor, but they're saying if TJ Dillashaw beats Henry Cejudo, the 125s are gone, and the rumor is that they're going to bring in a 165 weight division for the guys just like you. You got guys that kill themselves cutting to 55. They feel sluggish a little bit at 70. So, I mean, in your thought, isn't it? Do you think it's a good idea to add more weight divisions so you don't have people passing out during weight cuts? They just had a female Australian fighter, Jessica Rose Clark. She passed out during her weight cut trying to make weight, and she's totally professional, always makes weight. So do you feel like they should add those middle weight classes for people like yourself that are truly in the middle for a safe weight cut?
Yeah, I understand their apprehension at the start without thinning out divisions, but especially in an organisation like the UFC, you look at those two divisions with your welterweight and your lightweight. There's deep talent pool. It's actually a log jam at both those divisions. If you brought in that extra weight class and the 10-pound regiment, I think it'd be perfect. You know what I mean? What they're in the business of, especially when it comes to pay-per-views, is selling champions. Now they're going to lose a champion if they get rid of that division. They need to replace that champion in somewhere else in the organisation just to keep those pay-per-views rolling over with their champions. I think that it would be the smartest move.
I think you're right, man. The talent pool is so deep above and below. They would fill the 65 division in like 10 seconds. There'd be guys falling over each other. So here you go, 17-7. What's next, man? Obviously the end goal is to what? Fight in the UFC. But what's like your 6-month plan and then maybe like a 3-year plan? Because you seem like one of them guys that has it all, like you've already thought this out. Like you know where you're heading. So tell us where you're heading.
Yeah, look, obviously the aim is to fight on the largest organisation in the world, which is the UFC. They're coming down to Melbourne early next year. That was the reason, obviously, especially when the fight was initially cancelled for the show here in Melbourne. That's why it was our eagerness to get the fight rebooked somewhere. And I was so lucky with the guys at Eternal were able to accommodate that. So thank you very much to Ben and Cam for looking after me. They're sensational guys. Get back in that win column. As much as it's just back in the win column, it still gives us that chance for February. My goal for next year, especially being now back at welterweight, is fight heaps. I'd be happy to have 6 fights next year fighting at welterweight. I'd be stoked with that. My aim is always to fight the largest organisation I can, UFC being the one, but whoever I fight for has to tick 3 boxes. I fight professionally and I have a family, so financially it has to make sense. You know what I mean? I need to make sure I'm making a good profit from my fighting. I want access to the best possible competition I can. So obviously that's why the UFC is so appealing. It's where the top end fighters all are. But if an organisation can give me access to that, I'm stoked. And I'd like the ability to travel. I'd like to make sure that instead of just fighting in Melbourne or just fighting in Australia, where I fought a lot of the better guys here in the country already, I'd love to travel around the world and fight some of these ugly animals from around the world that can do nasty things as well. I want the ability to do that.
You don't run into many guys that ask for that. You got to be you're the special kind of guy to ask for that.
Yeah. Hey, I'm going to throw something at you. So Uncle Dana rings and says, all right, Melbourne, you've got your UFC debut. Pick someone that you'd love to debut against in lightweight, welterweight. Who would you want to debut against?
Oh, mate, I would fight, as I said a couple of times, I'd fight a 300-pound penguin if they give me my chance to fight on the big stage. Anyone that's listed. There's exciting fights. There's fights with guys that are in there that I'd like to get hold of too. Let's throw a name out. Who's the guys? A couple of guys that are more than likely going to be on that show in February. You know what I mean? If they bring someone like a Luke Chameau out to fight, he needs to fight. I'd love to dance with him. They bring someone like an Alex Georges out for his second fight in the UFC. I would be more than happy to get in there and mix it up with them too. A couple of local guys that are more than likely going to be on that show that need dance partners. I'd love nothing more than to give them someone to throw some fists with in Melbourne.
I feel like it's kind of weird. I'm sorry. I just like this is in my brain. This is how it goes. I feel like it's hard coming from because MMA is not as big in Australia as it is here in the US. It's huge here. It's everywhere. I feel like they should do more cards out of this country because that gives like Dana White's Tuesday Night Contenders is not coming to Australia. So that's not an option, and they do all these little series, but they're not out of the country. I like when they show up because a guy like you that we know can fight in the UFC, 80% of the people that are fans here might not know. We're fortunate that we have Mr. Wayne Carl keeping us in the Australian MMA loop. He really does. I feel like I should live there for 6 months out of the year. His house. I've seen it. It's nice.
You're not welcome. No, only joking. Callan, I want to ask you something. The UFC are pushing this Anzac takeover, but every opportunity they get, they pit the New Zealanders against us. Do you feel a little bit, you look at that and think, well, what are you doing? They want us to support the New Zealanders. They want us to be, almost join countries against everybody else. Yet when it suits them, they'll put two against each other and then think nothing of it. Obviously, you had Kai Kara France up against Mokhtarian. And I wrote an article about that because they've been pushing us for years to say, we're the same, we're brothers, we're this, we're that. But when it suits them, they pit it against. So I really hope that you do debut, but I'd love to see you fight an American, maybe Nick or something like that. I'd love to see you. So when I go to Melbourne, I can stand up because I don't want to see two Australians fight against each other. I want to see you take on the world, and I think that raises your profile. I feel if an Aussie fights a New Zealander, no one in America cares.
Yeah, that's a sensational point. Absolutely spot on. You can see the reasoning behind it happening. A lot of times, the matches they make between Aussies and Aussies or Aussies and New Zealanders, they're a lot of times sorting out the divisions. A lot of times it's either, clearing out a couple of guys that might be on a loss and leaving one spot for those. A lot of times that's it. I would be very happy with that line of thought because if I never have to fight a New Zealander again, I would not be upset because there is no such thing as a soft New Zealander. They all hit hard. They all are tougher than trigonometry. It's just ridiculous. So if they go down that path, I would be happy never to fight New Zealander again.
Well, I'm going to go back a bit. You said you wanted to fight a 300-pound penguin. Now, my wife calls me a penguin sometimes. I reckon I'm about 225. So, again, I'm not fighting you, Cal. Sorry, it's all good.
If you fight him, I'll find out how to make this video pay-per-view right now. Somebody will buy it. It'll be pay-per-view. So now in the UFC, we have some big fights coming up. And I kind of like to get the fighters' thoughts on it because we could sit and hash it out back and forth what we think, but you do it. You know what I mean? So there's actually two fights I wanted to ask about. The first one, Jon Jones, Alexander Gustafsson. Who do you like in that fight, and how do you think they win?
That's a crazy fight. It's one of those ones that sort of snuck up. There's been so many good cards. You forget that's on next weekend. Great fight. Jones is an anomaly. You just don't know what sort of, he's been out for so long, but yet he's, performance-wise, he's probably the most dominant fighter in UFC history. His bad fights are still sensational. Yeah. So, look, it'd be hard to pick against him. Gustafsson's amazing as well. It'd be very hard to pick against Jones, though. He's given us no reason, even though he's had all this time off and he's had the quarrels outside the cage. It is so hard to pick against him. So I would probably pick Jones for that one.
Wayne?
Now, Nick, you've just stolen part of my rapid fire 5. So do you want me to go on with the rest of it?
I want you to tell me who's going to win between Jon Jones and Alexander Gustafsson.
You know who I'm picking. You're just trying to upset me. Gus will beat him this time.
I guess it's my turn. I'm going to say Jon Jones finishes him inside of 2 rounds, and here's why.
Ooh.
Here's why.
I'm more confident now because you get everything wrong, so I'm going to put money on Gustafsson.
But I don't.
You have no idea.
I call some wild fights that are. Wait, I'm gonna use an Aussie. Spot on. That's one, right? That one that you guys used. Here's why. Gustafsson arguably. There's an argument that he could have beat him the first fight. The decision was kind of, whatever. But to beat the champ, you got to finish the champ. I understand that. I think if Jones finishes him with authority, that rights all the wrongs. So that's my assessment for that. And I want to ask you about one more because I know we're all going to disagree on this.
Here we go.
Amanda Nunes, Chris Cyborg. Who do you have and why? Wayne, I'm sticking to my prediction. I'm telling you I'm right.
Yeah, that's another one that's crazy. It's it's strength and a lot of physical abilities versus technique. I think Nunes is by far a more technical striker, more technical boxer, very skilled. But Cyborg again has just got a lot more physical capabilities than anyone she's ever fought. You know what I mean? Holly Holm was probably the closest to her as far as those physical capabilities, but still wasn't even in the same realm.
Right.
So I could see if she is able to stick and move in a boxing style for the rounds, her picking apart Cyborg, but she has to avoid that pressure and physicality for 5 rounds, which I think is just a little bit too difficult. It's a lot. That's a long time inside the cage to avoid that. So I think maybe second or third round, I think Cyborg might get hold of it and land something devastating.
Wayne?
So, who beat Amanda Nunes with power? Kat Zingano. Is Kat Zingano as strong as Cyborg? No. Cyborg will bully her. Round 3, fight's over. And that will be 7-zip between me and Nick Portella.
Well, hang on. I get a turn
7-zip.
here. Kat Zingano did beat her, but we're talking a less evolved Amanda Nunes. My prediction, Nunes via 4th round submission.
Whoa.
I like what he said. You got power versus technique, and I feel like the technique isn't far apart, but neither is the power. I think they're both going to move forward, but be very cautious of each other because they both have the ability to land a knockout punch. But I feel like in the later rounds, Nunes will be able to score a takedown, and I believe her ground game is just that much better. I know Cyborg's a brown belt, I believe, but Nunes and her camp out there at ATT, Jiu-Jitsu is a real deal out there. I've made this prediction on about 10 different shows, so I am sticking with it. I'm sticking with it.
So we're going to get away from your nonsense, and I'm going to ask my rapid fire of 3 now because you've taken 2 of my words. So you just keep talking about the shit I'm going to talk about, but that's okay. So who would you rather have a beer with?
Championship rounds just a standard match now.
Yep.
Correct.
5
So
to 3.
you're going to have a beer at, I think you're in Gisborne. So there's Tyson Fury in one pub, and then you've got Wilder in another. Who do you want to have a beer with?
I'd probably choose Tyson just because it would be far more interesting. I'm not sure how much I'd bond with Wilder. It'd be all good to hear him talk about himself for half an hour, but I think Tyson would have a few more yarns and it'd be interesting to sit there and have a beer with.
All right, next one.
Agreed.
You're standing in the cage, you're going to get a hook from Tyson or a head kick from Crow Cop. Pick your poison. How do you want to get knocked out?
Mate, well, at least with the Crow Cop one, you wouldn't feel anything. I think I would rather a rhino charge through me than get kicked in the head by a Crow Cop. I reckon.
Seriously.
Left or right leg. I don't want his shins anywhere near my chin.
Good answer. Last one. Conor or Diaz in the 3rd fight, if it ever happens.
I absolutely think it's going to happen. That's too much money behind that for it not to happen.
It makes sense now.
Yeah, 100%. Depends if Diaz is keen again, if he's fired up and his head's back in the game. Yes. If they fight at 155, gives Conor that chance. I think if they fight again, and it's what Conor said, the 3rd one was going to be at 155. I think if it's at 155, I think Conor gets it.
And if Conor wins that 3rd fight, then it'll be 2 for Nate and 1 for Conor. But that's a whole nother podcast.
So welcome Nick Portella, the biggest nut hugger on the Diaz train you have ever met.
It's not.
As you get, it's shocking. You need to read my articles, the battles that we have. He hasn't beaten me yet, and everyone tells me this, and he's a constant Diaz fan. But we'll let that go, mate. I want to go back to you.
Just while you say that, I've actually had Nate Diaz at my house, and I've taken him out for dinner here in Australia. This was about 4 years ago. He came down for a seminar, and then he came out for dinner with us. He was the nicest guy, one of the nicest guys I've ever met in my life.
I met him in Miami, and the same kind of deal. I was talking to him, and he actually recorded a video for my son saying hi and stuff. So he does all the stuff on TV, but when he's with his fans and out, he is a good dude.
He's a sensation.
Told you, Wayne.
All right, back to you, Callan, because I want everyone to get to know the Rockstar, mate. So you're in a band. Are you still in that band, or what was the band called?
No. So I did the cover band thing in Australia for a long time. In Australia, obviously, the cover bands and the pubs are a big deal. So we travelled around Victoria and did lots of the cover band thing. No, I haven't sang for about 3 or 4 years, if that's what you called it. I reckon I've got nodes now in my throat, not so much from the singing, but new UFC alum Jimmy Crute one day kicked me in the neck, and I reckon I've actually got some nodes in there. But like I've said on numerous occasions, I don't think it was any great loss to the arts community when I stopped singing. So, all safe.
Now, which IGA did you work at? Because I reckon that obviously I like the odd bourbon, but I've heard a rumour that you used to work. I obviously work at the Reese Group, and one of the guys that works for me used to work with you, Matthew.
Okay.
So which IGA was it? Was it the Melton one or Gisborne?
No, neither. No, same group,
Okay.
which is the Morgans group. But I started off in the Delahaye store, and then I moved to the Sunbury store.
Okay, so Delahaye, I actually have a Reese store just round the corner. So I reckon you give me a death stare every now and again. Lucky I was polite enough to just walk away. So, fair. You've trained with some of the best in Australia. Who's been the biggest influence on your career?
Look, like I said, I'm very lucky to have shared it, and I could name 100 different people, but the one person who it's going to very much pain me to give compliments to is Dan Kelly. He's been a huge part of my career, not just technically. As you can see, that my judo, my no-gi judo is second to none, but yet I can't get graded in judo. I don't know why that's happening. Dan's just a bit of a stinge. But not even just the technical side. His mental approach to fighting and training is something that has absolutely changed my game. You know what I mean? He's obviously as tough a drug as it comes, and a lot of that stuff that I wasn't skilled in before that I used to train with him has really washed off on me, and he's improved my game in and out of the cage to no end.
We need to get you and Dan Kelly on that Melbourne card together.
Awesome. That would be a dream.
I really think everyone in the Australian MMA community need to start hashtagging everyone. Nick can help us with that. We've got to get it out there that these two guys, one, Dan needs a farewell fight. And you know what? It would be a shame if you don't get to show everyone how good of a fighter you are. I've obviously seen you fight, Hex and whatnot. So it'd be great to get your name out there. And I think it'd be a shame if the UFC don't reach out and at least give you that chance, mate, because, I really hope it happens.
Yeah, thank you very much. And we've talked about it. Obviously, we love Dan on there. Jimmy's on there now. And what the Melbourne show needs, not only just great fighters, which I believe we all are, but they want local guys they can get behind. You know what I mean? And what's more Australian than getting behind, a guy coming in to finish off his career, show support to his son that he loves, a guy coming in, trying to put on a show, and that's all we want to do. A couple of 3 hard Melbourne boys that want to get out there and scrap. How do locals not want to get behind that? So the UFC would be well learned to be listening to what everyone's saying, guys. Get us on there and let us put on a show.
My theory is always the top guys should get on the card. You're one of the top guys in Australia. This to me, it's almost like a no-brainer. Maybe it's just the way my head works, but if you need 10 guys from Australia, you go through the weight classes and take the 10 best guys. They don't even have to. They could be the same weight class. Doesn't matter. Take the 10 best guys, stick them on the card, and see what happens. I should be co-president.
That's it.
So currently, what belts do you hold at the moment? I obviously did a Q&A, and there's a photo of you holding about 105 belts. Jesus. What are you currently the title holder? Are you still the Hex title holder?
Yeah, so I've held and defended both my Hex lightweight title, my Eternal lightweight title, and I was a 3-time Valor welterweight champion, which I never lost that either. So they were all the titles. So actually, any title that I've won, I've actually never lost, and I've defended them all, which is a nice little accolade to have too. So
when you started your career, you started 2-2. Did you ever think that you'd end up, as you just said, holding all those belts? Because I obviously did some research, and Tabology isn't always perfect, but I noticed that you started 2-2, and you shared the cage with guys like Jake Matthews and Steve Kennedy, MMA legends in the Australian. Like, I know Jake's only young, but you look at him, he's fought in the UFC a lot. Even Richie Welsh, Corey Nelson. You've shared the cage with the best of the best. You started 2-2, and now when people talk about top 5 in Australia, pound for pound. I'm pretty sure everybody that knows anything about MMA in Australia, you're one of the first names said.
Yeah, so hopefully it stuck out from the start of my career. I was only ever interested in getting the best fights I could get. You know what I mean? I wasn't, even if I was only going to be in the sport for a short time, I was going to make sure that I tried to reach as high as I could. MMA is a very basic sport where it's very easy to win, very easy to lose. So there's been cases like that throughout my whole career. Those fights that I was unsuccessful in were so pivotal in where I'm at now. You know what I mean? And instead of going from nothing to something quite large in a small amount of time, I started fighting higher level guys. So by the end of the career, when my skills matched my enthusiasm, it wasn't such a big leap. So those fights were very, very important.
So last question from me, and I'll hand over. You've obviously got, is it one young daughter?
Two.
You've got two
daughters.
How do they feel about Dad fighting in the UFC, and have they actually seen any of your tapes punching people up?
Well, the youngest one's only 10 months, so I don't think she's too switched on to anything at the moment.
Not yet.
But Madison, who's she's almost 4, she'll be 4 next year. She's getting a little bit more switched on. She comes down to the gym lots. She likes to have a roll with her jiu-jitsu, and she knew Daddy came home last week with a lot of owies, and that he winned. So I was happy to share that moment with her, man. It gets things with your children. There's not much more. I've said a couple of times. There's not much more motivation I need. You know what I mean? Just to see smiles and share little moments like that with my girls is as much motivation as I'll ever need to do anything, especially strive towards something like the UFC.
Well, hopefully in Feb, mate, both daughters, even though the one's under a year old, hopefully they both get to see you in the UFC, mate. And from Combat Insiders, from myself, from Nick, who's going to wrap us up, wish all the best. And, yeah, we'll try to get it out there and make sure that everyone knows that Callan Potter deserves his shot.
Thank you guys very much. So the big tag you guys will be chasing for is that Cal, the number 4 UFC, that hashtag. So we'll get that start going again and really start doing the press like we've always done.
Yeah, we could do that. I got 6 belts too. One of them's Gucci. One of them's Guess. Actually, to go along with the tag, for people that watch this, where can people reach you, follow you, contact you, like fans on social media?
Obviously, the Facebook's probably out in Australia. Facebook's probably the biggest one, which is just Callan the Rockstar photo page. I've got Twitter as well, the same. I think they're all connected on there, and Instagram. So the Facebook page probably the biggest one, and Facebook the hashtags on there. So Callan the Rockstar Potter, jump on there. Some good videos, some highlights. I think the video from the last fight at Eternal is going to be out this weekend. So we'll get shared to that, and after that we'll probably start putting the press again for that hashtag and that push towards our spot in February.
All right, cool. Sounds good. Well, everybody, make sure you go out, give this guy a follow, send him a message, ask him a question. He's a nice guy. You see, he'll probably answer you.
Mate, he's from Australia. We're the nice guys. You guys are the ones with the Gucci belts, mate. We're humble.
Do you even have Gucci in Australia?
We have Gucci. I can't afford it, mate. I'm from Bacchus Marsh.
We have Dryzerbone. That's sort of like Gucci.
I don't know what that is, but I want 3 of them. Whatever they are, I'll wear it.
I struggle with them, Callan. I struggle with them. Just some of the things he comes out with. They can't spell, by the way. I don't know if you've noticed that. They can't spell centre. They can't spell utilising. And he changes all my words because he thinks America's more important.
Because we're going to have our spelling bee after we sign off from here. But, Callan, definitely, bro, thank you for coming on. I know the time difference is wild. It's always cool when you guys make time to have us to come on with us. For Wayne Carl, Nick Portella, Combat Insiders, we're out.